I am Ari Solomon, and I am a compassion champ. I feel this overwhelming need to leave this world better than I found it. And I think that for me, the way to do that is to make the world kinder and to make it gentler and to stand up for people who literally have no voice. I mean, these animals cannot speak for themselves, and it is human beings doing this to them. So I feel an overwhelming need to speak up on behalf of them. So growing up, my family ate pretty much a standard American diet. You know, meat, potatoes, not a lot of veggies. But I do remember one time, I must have been 6 or 7 years old, and I remember my mother telling me that a hamburger came from cows. And I remember in that moment thinking like, that's really strange. Like, what do you mean cows? Like, how does this a cow? Because when you're a kid, you're grown up being taught about animals, and a cow says moo and a pig says oink, and they're your friends and whatever. So it was kind of a weird thought, and like, but then I never questioned it after that. I do think that people, like I said, they have this misconception that they're going to be sacrificing all this stuff, or they're going to be like restricting themselves. They don't realize that there's so many foods that you can eat. Like when we're talking about meat and fish, like what are we talking about? We're talking about like what, like 5 or 6 different options that you can have with your meal. There's so many more plant-based foods. So I tell people, like, take it slow. You know, slowly integrate these new foods into your diet and slowly move away from those other foods that you were eating. Your tastes will change, your cravings will change, and what you cook and what you eat will change. And eventually, I mean, now at this point in my life, it's so second nature, I don't even think about it. My aha moment, I was 30 years old. I was sitting at home watching The View, and Alicia Silverstone comes on. And she says that she's vegan, and I'm like, you know, big deal, good for you, you're vegan. I didn't even register. And then Rosie O'Donnell asked her why. And she said, you know, I really love my dogs. She said she was at home on the couch with her dogs one day and thought, well, if I'm gonna eat animals, like, why don't I just eat my dogs? Like, what's the difference between a cow or a pig and my dogs? And I was sitting at home on my couch watching this, and I'm going like, wow, that's a really interesting thought. I've never considered that before. And so afterwards, I just happened to, you know, go into the bedroom and, you know, take out my laptop and go on the computer and Google Alicia Silverstone and veganism. And that led me to a bunch of different websites that showed what is essentially undercover investigations of how meat is produced. And I was horrified. And I was really shocked, and I remember thinking like, my God, I'm 30 years old. I consider myself a progressive. I run with a pretty, like, you know, educated crowd. How come no one has ever brought this to my attention before? It was like this like hidden world that I'd never seen before. And so I blew off work that morning, and for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I was just watching these videos and reading online. And my husband came into the bedroom after a couple hours and said like, what's going on? Like, are you going into work, or like, what's happening right now? And I said, I know this is coming out of nowhere, and I know you're gonna be surprised, but I don't think I can eat anything that ever comes from animals ever again. And literally that was it. Like, I went vegan overnight. LGBT people are like all people. They're going to have blind spots. None of us are perfect. It's just one of those things that it's frustrating, because you would hope that as someone who is LGBT, you would be a little bit more compassionate, empathetic, that maybe as your experiences as being part of a minority group would maybe open you up a little bit more to considering the suffering of others. Unfortunately, it's just not always the case. So all I can do is speak the truth, talk about what these animals go through, and hope that one day something will click with them and they will open their hearts and their minds to, you know, the suffering of animals.